Buckshot Roberts in the Battle of Blazers Mill. On April 4th of 1878, one of the Wild West's most legendary gunfights took place at Blazers Mill. It was one man against 8 skilled gunfighters, a standoff that turned into a story for the ages. So, who was Buckshot Roberts? Andrew L. Buckshot Roberts was a cowboy, buffalo hunter, and frontier legend. Not much is known about his early life, but he supposedly worked as a Texas Ranger under the name Bill Williams. He also fought for the Union Army during the Civil War, reaching the rank of sergeant, and later hunted buffalo with Buffalo Bill Cody. Roberts earned his nickname after a shotgun blast left his right arm permanently damaged. He couldn't lift his rifle higher than his hip, but it didn't stop him from being a deadly shot. By the mid-1870s, Roberts owned a small ranch in New Mexico's Ruidoso Valley. Though he had ties to James Dolan and Lawrence Murphy, major players in the Lincoln County War, which is the major war involving Billy the Kid, Roberts avoided the violence. When asked to pick a side, he made it clear that he wasn't interested, saying, quote, "I've fought enough in my time, and I'll fight no man's battle for him." When John Tunstall, a rival in the Lincoln County War, was murdered in February of 1878, Roberts was unfairly accused of being involved. A warrant was issued for his arrest. Trying to avoid the conflict, Roberts sold his ranch and planned to leave the area. While waiting for his payment at Blazers Mill, Roberts had no idea that a group of gunmen known as the Regulators, the famous Regulators that we've already done a video on, including Billy the Kid and their leader Dick Brewer, were there, hunting Tunstall's killers. Blazers Mill was a sawmill and a trading post, with a few scattered buildings nearby. Roberts had arrived that day to check if his payment had arrived. The Regulators spotted him and decided to confront him. Frank Coe approached first, trying to convince Roberts to surrender, but Roberts refused, believing that the Regulators would just kill him anyway. Tensions boiled over, and Dick Brewer sent the rest of the Regulators to force Roberts' hand. Buckshot Roberts fired first, hitting Charles Bowdry in the belt buckle and knocking the wind out of him. In the chaos, Roberts was shot in the stomach but kept fighting. Over the next few moments, he wounded several Regulators, including John Middleton, who was shot in the chest. Doc Scurlock's pistol was shattered by a bullet. George Coe lost a thumb and a trigger finger, and Billy the Kid's arm was grazed. When his rifle ran out of bullets, Roberts used the barrel of his gun to knock Billy the Kid unconscious before retreating inside the mill. Arming himself with another rifle, Roberts barricaded the doorway and prepared for more. Frustrated by the stalemate, Dick Brewer tried to sneak around the back of the mill. But Roberts saw him and fired, killing Brewer with a shot to the eye. With their leader dead and morale shattered, the Regulators retreated. Locals later approached Roberts with a doctor under a white flag. And though the doctor tried to treat him, or did treat him, his wound was fatal, and he died within 36 hours. The aftermath is where Buckshot Roberts and Dick Brewer are actually buried side by side in Mescalero, New Mexico. You can still go to see it. Though outnumbered, Roberts' courage and skill turned the battle into one of the West's greatest stories, a tale of actual, true grit of the American West, determination, and one man's fight against all odds. The Cherokee Courtroom Shootout, or the Going Snake Massacre. On April 15th of 1872, a bloody and chaotic gunfight erupted during a trial in the Cherokee Nation's Going Snake District. Known as the Cherokee Courtroom Shootout, or the Going Snake Massacre, the event was a result of a jurisdictional dispute between Cherokee court systems and the U.S. federal authorities. Surpriser. The origins of this feud are about the conflict that began between Ezekiel or Zeke Proctor, a Cherokee man, who killed Polly Beck, another Cherokee, and seriously wounded her white husband, Jim Kesterson. On February 13th of 1872, Proctor confronted Kesterson at Hildbrand Mill, where Kesterson worked with Polly. The two men argued, and when the situation escalated, Polly stepped between them to stop the fight. Proctor fired, killing Polly and narrowly missing Kesterson, who fled. Proctor claimed the shooting was accidental, but Polly's family, the Becks, believed otherwise. Both families had a tense history. Proctor was a member of the Kiowa Society, a Cherokee group dedicated to preserving traditional tribal ways and opposing white influence. The Becks, by contrast, had Confederate ties during the Civil War and were not aligned with Proctor's faction. Rumors swirled that Proctor might have harbored romantic feelings for Polly, adding fuel to the already bitter feud. At the time, Oklahoma was considered Indian territory, with tribes governing themselves under their own laws. Proctor, a Cherokee, was tried in the Cherokee court system. However, Polly's marriage to a white man gave the U.S. government a reason to intervene. A federal posse led by the Deputy U.S. Marshal J.G. Peavy, say that really fast, J.G. Peavy, and J.G. Owens, so Peavy and Owens, and the posse was formed and to make sure that justice was served, though it was clearly they sided with the Becks. The trial was scheduled for April 15th of 1872 at a Cherokee schoolhouse in Whitmore, Oklahoma. Tensions boiled over as both Proctor's supporters and the Beck family gathered, armed and ready for a fight. The schoolhouse was packed with Proctor's allies, while Beck supporters had formed an armed crowd outside. When the federal posse arrived, led by Peavy and Owens, they attempted to enter the courtroom, and chaos erupted and gunfight broke out. 7 posse members were killed, including Deputy Owens. Several others were wounded, including both Beck supporters and Proctor's allies, and the schoolhouse became a war zone, with bullets flying in all directions. Proctor himself survived the shootout, shielded by his supporters who outnumbered and outgunned the federal posse. The next day, the trial concluded, and Zeke Proctor was acquitted by the Cherokee court, which ruled the shooting accidental. This outcome obviously enraged the Beck family and the federal authorities, but no further attempts were made to arrest Proctor. The Going Snake Massacre highlighted the tension between the U.S. government and native tribes, as well as divisions within the Cherokee Nation. For many, it became a grim symbol of the challenges faced by the Native American self-governance in the shadow of the westward expansion. Today, the massacre is remembered as one of the most violent courtroom confrontations in U.S. history. The Frisco Shootout, Alfego Baca's legendary stand. The Frisco Shootout was a dramatic Old West gunfight that took place on December 1st of 1884 in Reserve, New Mexico. At the center of the chaos was lawman Alfego Baca, whose determination and quick thinking turned a hopeless situation into a legendary tale of survival. The incident began when Baca arrested Charlie McCarty, a drunken cowboy who had been recklessly firing his gun into the air and into buildings. McCarty's behavior had caused alarm, obviously, in town, and Baca, a determined deputy, stepped in to restore order. McCarty's arrest angered his friends, who quickly gathered in force to confront Baca. Outnumbered and outgunned, Baca sought refuge in the home of a local resident, Geronimo Armijo, preparing to make his last stand. The confrontation escalated into a fierce standoff as numbers of cowboys swelled to nearly 80 men. For 36 hours, a relentless barrage of gunfire rained down on Armijo's house. Legend claims the cowboys fired over 4,000 rounds during the shootout, but Baca miraculously remained unscathed. Despite being surrounded, he returned fire with deadly accuracy, killing 4 cowboys and wounding 8 others. As the battle wore on, the cowboys ran out of ammunition. Unable to continue the assault, they withdrew, ending the standoff. Baca emerged from the bullet-riddled house unharmed, having defied overwhelming odds. Although Charlie McCarty served jail time for disturbing the peace and drunkenness, the cowboys sought revenge against Baca through legal means. In May of 1885, he was indicted for the killing of one of the cowboys. However, during the trial, the door of Armijo's house, riddled with over 400 bullet holes, was presented as evidence. This striking testimony of the firefight helped convince the jury of Baca's innocence, and he was acquitted. After the shootout, Baca continued his career in law enforcement, later becoming a licensed attorney and a deputy U.S. Marshal. The Frisco Shootout cemented his reputation as a fearless and resourceful lawman, turning him into a folk hero of the Old West. This event remains one of the most extraordinary tales of resilience and courage in the face of insurmountable odds, showcasing Baca's determination to uphold the law no matter what cost.